Good evening, and welcome to this evening's video cast of To Be Known. At Kerith Church, we believe that to be loved is to be known, and we want to know you. My name is Wendy Jackson. I'm a counselor and psychotherapist, and my guest this evening is Lisa Owens. About interaction, conversation, we want to hear from you, so please ask your questions, make comments. Our producer tonight is Ben Pocock. He'll get them up on the screen, and Lisa and I would love to include you in this conversation. Tonight's topic is on suicidal thinking. Sometimes it's really hard to find hope. Our thoughts become dark, and we find ourselves in a tough spot. And tonight we're going to be speaking with Lisa about her experience of depression and just her thoughts on this subject. You all know Lisa as the Hope and Depression Lady around church. She's part of our Bracknell site and has been quite visible speaking about her course and just how to help those that are in depression. But tonight we're going to be talking about Lisa's own journey. Just a quick side note to introduce Lisa. We know each other about 12 years. We've experienced a lot of life together. Lisa has 3 children, 2 adult children, Ashley and Lily, and her sons, Ethan. Lisa's married to an American. His name is Brent. And like myself, Lisa has been an expat, lived in Germany, lived in the United States, and kind of we refer to each other as part of the same tribe. I'd like to invite Lisa to come on screen with us. And as we finish our conversation, Lisa, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the upcoming class, Hope and Depression on Zoom that's starting later this month, or the beginning of next month. And we'll just save some time at the end so you can let us all know about that. But tonight, just really want to welcome you and thank you so much for being willing to speak to us about your own story.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Lisa is a very experienced speaker. She's a guest all the time, but we've kind of put her on the spot tonight a little bit. We're going to speak less about the charity and more about herself. And so if you could just start, Lisa, and just kind of put us in the place where you were at that led up to your depression.
So I had a very year. We call it our year of chaos. Really, we had one thing after another sort of happen to us as a family. We experienced loss. My daughter wasn't very happy in school, and the school wasn't being very helpful about it. There was an injury, and I then lost a baby. Had to deliver him, and then I broke my ankle. And the ankle break forced me into feeling what I've been trying not to feel. So when I went through all of those experiences, I coped by getting busy. So I ran my own business, was a beauty therapist, and I just got busier and busier and busier. And when I broke my ankle and I was laid flat on my back in a hospital for 8 days before surgery, I couldn't be busy and stop feeling. So that was kind of the state we were in, really. The girls were young. They were 7 and 10 and, needed their mum. And so I had all that pressure, and it just all came crashing down. And the pain of my ankle was nothing in comparison to the mental torment that caught up with me.
Yeah. And just to bring out some of the things that Lisa's saying is it was like a period of time. I know you lost your mother. You lost a pregnancy, and keeping yourself busy, and that feeling of just pushing it, I can do this, I can cope. I got 2 little kids. Yeah. They need me. I got to get to work. My clients are counting on me. Thinking of everything except for the thing that really hurts.
Yeah.
Until there's nothing else but that to think about, kind of feeling.
Oh yeah, it came up, but there was underlying things as well that were there that I didn't realize until I then went through therapy and recovery. And that was, my husband's mother was 36 when she died. I was approaching 36. I knew the pain that had been caused to my husband's family, his siblings and himself. And I just for some reason in my subconscious had thought that's going to happen to me. And so when I broke my ankle, I didn't see a broken bone. I thought this is going to kill me. And, you know, I know we're going to talk about suicidal thoughts, but I went from desperate to be alive and very health conscious and very stressed about any pain or issue to being exhausted by that way of thinking. And then just saying, do you know what? I just want to die. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It was a shocking shift.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that how those thoughts came in. So, you know, it's not uncommon. What happens is we have this experience of loss, you know, trying to keep ourselves together, and we keep going, and we kind of, you know, there's a line, right? And we're above the line, and we know we're tired, and we know we're knackered, but we keep going and we keep going. And then I would almost describe it as there's a day, and we go from being above the line to being below the line, and everything changes.
Yeah.
And you know, it's no longer just in my thoughts, it's in my body, and it's in it's in how I look at everything, how I go through my day, how I experience everything.
Yeah, it changed me completely. It changed me completely. And it was a long battle to understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, you know, thinking when I broke my ankle, did I hit my head? Have I got a bit of brain damage? You know, what is going on with me that I don't feel like me anymore? And I'm so sad. You know, the way I was before was a numb state, and that numb state was maintained by being busy. If I was busy, I didn't have to feel. People were more upset about the loss of my baby in the playground, other mums, than I was. And I felt really strange about that, like they're crying and I'm not crying, but I was numb. That's the only way I could survive.
Yeah.
It caught up with me.
Yeah, during that time, what were the things that kept you alive, that kept you going?
Distraction was really important. Friends, you know, I think God nudged a few people. I know he did. You know, I got a phone call in a very key moment when Brent had just taken the girls out just to give them a break from, you know, being around a very anxious mum. And I got a phone call saying, Lisa, I'm at home. I'm going to come up and sit with you. And she now knows, but that was a moment when I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the next minute, you know? So there were moments where, I was absolutely desperate, and it was minute by minute living. And I know when Brent was at work, you know, just looking at the clock, like he's going to be home and it could take forever. Just having him around me, reassuring me that I am going to get better was, you know, my lifeline. And I exhausted that. He couldn't cope with that.
So you needed it all the time.
I needed it all the time. Yeah. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating. Yeah.
And so I'm hearing you say, those that checked in on you, those that could pick up that something wasn't right. You weren't being yourself. There was something different about what was going on with you.
Yeah. They were brave and bold, I guess, really, because some people are a bit fearful of saying the wrong thing. And, you know, actually, you can't say the wrong thing if you're going to be kind, caring, and compassionate. If they acknowledged me and my pain, that was an amazing kindness. When people possibly tried to make sense of it, maybe it could feel a bit judgmental, or maybe this has happened to you because of this. And, you know, that wasn't helpful. Trying to work it out with me, just being with me, you know, just taking me for a walk and distracting me. Bearing in mind, I was unable to put my right leg down for a long time. So, it was, it's distraction. It's helping time go past until you start to feel better and start to feel better.
And just the presence of somebody who cares.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think being alone, I was with my thoughts, and then I ruminate, and there's no one else to bounce those off of and reassure me. And what I had to learn through therapy was I needed to self-assure. I needed to reassure myself by asking my husband to reassure me. It was exhausting him, and it wasn't working, because I would ask again a minute later, am I ever going to get better? Is this me forever? You know, So, therapy was key in my recovery.
Yeah, you're making a really interesting point, and I'm going to go into the psychoeducation of it just a little bit and talk about what goes on with us when we get to a place like that. Because what happens is our nervous system has been so alerted and triggered to the danger of, in this case, it's an emotion, but our body can't tell the difference between a actual imminent danger, like a tiger in the room, as our emotion, our pain. And so what happens is our body and our brain goes into this mode of just focus on the problem. That's what we see. We don't see the peripheral. We don't see, unfortunately, at those times, we don't see the joy. We don't see the sunny day. We have a really hard time of seeing the hope of what comes next when we're so focused on just, what am I going to do to get through this pain? How am I going to get this pain to stop? And, the thought of suicide, and you and I have had this conversation before, evolutionary psychology tells us that everything we do is about survival. All our thoughts are about survival. And that thought of suicide is actually our brain providing a solution for the pain to stop. Now, what I would say to somebody is that is a solution, and there are other solutions, and let's look at, what are the other solutions. But when we feel so hopeless, our brain will go to that, and it's a natural response in that moment of pain. If I wasn't here tomorrow, it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
What did you find? What else did you find helpful? I know you're talking about just those people that kept in touch, called, checked in, time with your husband. Anything else in particular that was helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was pretty extreme because I guess my mum wasn't alive anymore. So I would have gone to my mum and dad's house and had a break. What happened was I had two small children that saw this, mum that coped and was fun, crying, not coping, and pretty unrecognizable. So I would see that look in their eyes, which was pretty scary, because they were saying, where have you gone, mum? Not to me, but in their eyes, I was saying the same thing. Where have I gone? Like, I feel like I'm a different person. And my husband, I could see that I was exhausting him, and I couldn't be ill. That's how it felt like. It wasn't a place where I could be ill because I was breaking my family in that brokenness. And so I had another friend who just came up to me, and we were sat in the garden, and she just wouldn't drop this conversation. I didn't want to talk because I was in my head. And she said, I really struggled with anxiety once. I had a massive panic attack, and then I had depression. And I went to this really cool place. It was like a country estate, and I got better. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I need. I need to just get away, because the guilt was just really as painful as this anxiety. And long story short, I went to a place called Cardinal Clinic, which was local to us in Dedworth. I didn't really understand what it was. I just thought it was a retreat, a place for me to be safe, a place for me to be kept well. And it was only when I checked in and we found that my private health insurance allowed me to check in, that it was actually a private psychiatric hospital. And it was like a country estate. It was pool tables and an indoor pool and meals and exercise classes and art classes. But what it was for me was a place where I felt like they would keep me safe from me, because I was struggling to breathe emotionally. And if I couldn't breathe physically, I would have been given oxygen in hospital. I couldn't breathe emotionally. I needed to be given some kind of oxygen to get me to the next day and the next day and the next day until I started to feel better. And that's what Cardinal Clinic was for me. It was a great place. It was a place where I learned some amazing things, and I took time out. But, it was a last resort, and certainly not a place where I chose to go when I then had postnatal depression after having my son, because I had a small baby. But at that time, I had to be safe.
Yeah. And you make a really good point, Lisa, because when we get to that place where we can't, it's good to know we don't have to,
Yeah.
there's, whether it be, you know, at a family's house, a family home.
Yeah.
But the fact that having two small kids and dealing with what was going on with you was too much to
Mm.
have a place of retreat, to give you that time out, to just kind of focus on, I like what you said about emotional breathing,
Mm.
just creating that space around you where you could actually just, stop for a minute,
Mm.
catch your breath with
Yeah.
everything that was going on.
Well, and I think there was an element of shame for sure. For me, there was a huge stigma, as there is now, but it's lifting. But at the time, I was ashamed. I was a mum and a wife, and I wasn't coping with those roles. And I was a business owner, and I couldn't work. And it was a huge amount of shame. So much so that I didn't really let my family know how bad I was. I'm one of four, and recently my sister-in-law went through really bad depression. And we spoke about it afterwards when I told her my experience. And she said, if I'd have known, you could have come and stayed with me. But I didn't feel that I could say, I'm really not coping and I need to be somewhere else where I don't feel this pressure to pretend I'm okay because my children are looking at me and my husband's stressed. That was exhausting. And that I talk about this 2-ton mask. That's how I described it. This mask I would wear, and then it would get heavier and heavier until it fell over. Everybody could see I was ill when I went to the Cardinal Clinic. I couldn't hold that mask for anyone. I was desperate. So much so that this friend saw me in the park and said, I know a place where you can go. I couldn't hide it.
Yeah. And that just, I love, that your sister-in-law spoke up, because whoever is listening out there who's struggling, there are people that care, and we may feel that we're burdening, or we may feel that it's too much, but the people that love you, are there, and, they're not, there to fix you, but they're there to help you.
Yeah.
When you need help. And it's very hard to ask at those times, but it's okay to say, I'll be very American right now, just time out.
Time out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my brain wasn't working. For me, choosing what to wear could make me cry. I couldn't make that decision. And when I look back at that time, I thought I wore black every day. I thought I had a black top, black trousers. I didn't own any black clothes, but that's how warped my perspective was, that I felt clothed in darkness. But making a choice of what black top and what black trousers to wear was too hard. So, I just needed a place where it took all those burdens off so I could get well. It's almost like it felt like brain flu. My brain wasn't well. I needed to get it better. And for me, the Cardinal Clinic gave that to me, but not many people are going to have private health insurance. So ask your family members. They will love you and look after you and keep you safe.
Yeah. They're interesting to just to talk from the other perspective about the family members and people that are supporting living with someone who's struggling like this, and what's helpful. It's, a big part of what you can do for someone that's struggling like that is to be their advocate.
Yeah.
Is to find out what is available. What can I do? Talk to the NHS, call Samaritans, get some information, get online, and help find the resources and help build the resources for somebody that's struggling, because it sounds almost, as you tell the story, like almost like you were waiting for that friend in the park. Somebody said, somebody notice how much pain I'm in. Please, somebody notice.
Yeah. I mean, but I wasn't going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
So it needed to be someone that understood and recognized it in me. And it just so happened to be someone who'd experienced the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything that was not helpful?
I think pointing out my year of awful experiences and saying, oh my goodness, it's always you. That was really unhelpful. Because I then believed that and thought, oh my gosh, it is always me. It's always something that's going on in our family. Looking back, it was a season. It was an 18-month season of freak accident after freak incident after freak conflict that just happened to us as a family. But it was a season, and we haven't had a season like that. And if you look at most people in their lives will have a season, and those seasons change. So, but at the time, it was a ruminating statement that would go around my head. It's always you. It's always you. It's always you.
And
so those kind of statements.
Comment that's not helpful.
Yeah, not helpful at all. And almost to be detached from it, like, oh, I don't really understand. I've never been sad, or I've never been depressed, or okay, that's wonderful. Like if someone's got cancer, would you say to someone with cancer, oh, it must be awful, but I wouldn't really understand because I've never had cancer? You just wouldn't say that. You know, why do we treat this as not a physical illness? It's our brain. It's an organ that isn't well. And so, yeah, that kind of, and I understand that possibly that's something that the person was saying because they couldn't come to terms with maybe really what they were feeling emotionally. But it's not helpful. It's not helpful. It's also not helpful to kind of figure out why has this happened to you? You know, sometimes depression just comes on people. I had circumstances that just brought me to my knees and eventually to the floor, and I couldn't get up. But it might not be circumstances. It might be hormones. It might just be. And we need to not try and work it out. We wouldn't work out any other illness. You know, you wouldn't leave someone with diabetes. Is it because you ate chocolate bars when you were 16? You know, it's not helpful. It's not helpful, in my opinion.
That's really good. How about your faith at this time? How was your faith affected at this time?
Oh, it was shaken. It was shaken. I remember someone phoning me up and asking me, you know, how I was doing. And I said, I'm hanging on to my faith by my fingernails. And that was because I'd had possibly incorrect teaching from some health, wealth and prosperity churches that we'd been to. And, you know, trying to make sense of that and thinking, well, God blesses the ones he loves. You know, I can ask God to protect me. He'll protect me. And he hadn't. You know, in my immature mind, I was like, but this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And I felt really unprotected. And so I had to kind of make sense of that, like, you know, and go on a journey myself and research these things by saying, this isn't heaven. This is the world we live in, full of people that make mistakes and bicycles that fail and break people's ankles, which is what happened to me. It wasn't God doing it to me. This isn't heaven. But I had to realize that he's alongside us in these difficult times. He's not, you know, up there playing a human game of chess. Let's move you here and let you experience that. That's not. And that's what I felt like he was mad at me. That's what I felt like. It wasn't right. It wasn't biblical and it wasn't helpful. And it definitely affected me. But I hung on, and looking back, I can see God did send people and he did help me. But at the time I wanted to be fixed like that. Yeah. Come on, God, come in and fix me, you know, but I had to go on a journey, and it's been a rich journey that has set me free like never before. I don't resent my depression because I am who I am because of it. And it's been a good experience because I was kind of wrapped up in all these beliefs I had that were restrictive. And by experiencing and challenging those beliefs and going through that with therapy, I was like, oh, I feel more free now, you know?
And that's absolutely what happens with certain beliefs that we have is they work as long as they work.
Yeah.
And then they don't.
Yeah.
And then we've got nothing.
Yeah. And it's a release. You know, I think I've said this before, but like the way I kind of described it to my children was that therapy, it dealt with something that had become huge. So one of my beliefs was that I was going to die age 36 like Brent's mum had. I don't know why I thought that. It was a subconscious thought, but it restricted me and I became a bit health anxious and all that stuff. And so that balloon, if you can imagine that balloon and holding all these weird beliefs just grew and grew and grew until it took over my living space. And I was aware of it. So I would walk around this balloon and I would walk around this. And I was aware of it the whole time. And I just learned to live with it. It was suffocating. It was really difficult. And I had therapy. And when I went through it and addressed these beliefs and, came to terms with them, it was like we took a pin and that balloon burst. And I was like, what was that? Like, it's gone. It can be that powerful. Therapy for me was that powerful.
That's really great.
It takes work, though. It takes work, and you've got to be brave. But what's the alternative?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can be a long walk.
Yeah.
To that spot. But certainly worthwhile.
Yeah.
The theological perspective that you've gained from it, are there any particular thoughts about that, about biblical writings or that kind of that a little bit in reflection? What
I do. So I have a bit of an issue with a verse that was often misquoted to me, actually. And it's 1 Corinthians 10:13. And people would say, God won't give you more than you can handle. It's not what it says. He won't tempt you. He won't tempt you with more than you can handle. Believe you me, I had more than I could handle. For me to come to that state of mind, that point of view, I went past the limit that I could get to, right? And so that is an incorrect biblical verse. Life is hard, and we might experience things that we feel we can't handle. We can lean on God in that moment and ask him to provide us with support as we get through that storm of life. But it is not something he's promised us. He has not promised us to give us more than he can handle. He's promised not to tempt us beyond we can handle.
Yeah. And you make me think of in Philippians, there's another verse that's often what we call proof texted, kind of taken out of context and slapped on a situation. I can do all things through Christ is how people will quote it. And actually the quote is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mm.
And it's the context of that is Paul in prison, in a dungeon, chained and shackled, knowing that he's, on his way to Rome for his death. And he's sharing his faith. And he's saying, it's God that does this. God is the one who in this situation, he also says in Philippians, I've learned to be content no matter my circumstances, whether I'm in wealth or in squalor. And, it's this understanding that it's God that does it. It's not us. God's strengthens us. He's not calling on us to be, strong.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Well, so another kind of point that I wanted to make in reference to what I've learned is I know the Footprints poem is a poem and it's not a biblical verse, but I had a revelation about that. And that was that, God was carrying me through that difficult time. He was. And I can look back and see that. But there were times when I was trying to get down and walk. Now, if you imagine someone scooping you up and you don't rest in their arms and just rest in the carrying. You wriggle and you try and get down. It's a really uncomfortable experience. And I think there's an element where I was trying to make sense of it and just trying to do anything and everything and not really leaning on him, but just trying to fix me. And there's I can look back and say, when I did just go, okay, I'm not well. I'm going to go to this place and get better. I rested in his arms, and it was a much easier ride.
And it's a really good point, and also a resource I would point out that our body needs rest. And when we are overwhelmed, we need to step back. We need to step back. We need to take the space. We need to do those things in the moment before it leads to the really difficult spot. We need to take the time. Grief, it hits people different ways at different times, but it's heavy. It's heavy and it needs space. And sometimes that may look like, what we call in this country a duvet day, just
Yeah.
lying down with a good book or your favorite movie, or just outside listening, without a lot of plans, without a lot of, just sleep and
Yeah.
rest and tears if they're there. That's part of our experience as well. And this drive that we have for ourselves to keep going and to push and push and push. If we take the space when we need it, it'll help us from going too far, from hitting that line.
And that's self-awareness, isn't it? It's learning those skills, those techniques, those tools that can help you be self-aware and then put those things into practice. But we're not necessarily taught it. So if you don't know, you don't know. And that's what I learned,
Well, and we're often taught the opposite.
Yeah. Soldier on. Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. I'm just going to take a moment to invite anyone who's listening to the chat, if they have any questions for myself or Lisa, or just any comments about their own personal experiences. Ben will get those up for us, and we're happy to interrupt whatever it is we're speaking about to hear what you have to say, or what kind of questions you may have for either of us, or even just comments of your own experience that you want to share. Please do. And Lisa, I'm just going to go to just some reflection for you. At this point, let's fast forward a bit. What would you say to someone who's having these kind of thoughts, who's really feeling hopeless and suicidal?
Well, firstly, I would say that suicidal thoughts are a symptom of depression. So this isn't, something that is rare. It's a symptom of depression. So, take that weight off your shoulders. Secondly, I would say, and I have to say that I felt huge relief when I found that out. Oh, okay, this is why I feel this way, because I'm depressed, But, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I was in that state of mind where I was ready to give up. But I didn't, and I didn't, thank God, because I asked for help and I got help and people came in at the right moment. And I would have missed this experience if I hadn't have survived, and it is a serious illness. It is a life-threatening illness. And so if you're feeling that desperate, that panicky, that on the verge, then get the help you need. Consider the Samaritans an oxygen tank. If you couldn't breathe physically, you go into hospital, get an oxygen tank. Samaritans are trained. They would talk on the phone. They're an amazing resource 24/7. I would say that, don't try and fix yourself. It's something that you will need to get help for. And it's okay to ask for help. You're not weird. You're not the worst case out there. You're not, it is, you can feel better. That's the other thing I will say, is that, I had a very unhelpful GP at the time, and it was kind of insinuated that this was something I would have to learn to live with and battle for the rest of my life. That was not hopeful, and it was not helpful. You can feel better. You can feel better. That's what I will say. Life is to enjoy. It's certainly not to endure. And when you're in a state of depression, it feels like you're gritting your teeth and getting through each day. It will change. It will improve. You've got to ask for help and get help. And it is out there. It is out there. We need you. Everybody's unique. That's what I would say to someone feeling suicidal. We need you in this world. You are here for a reason. The ripple effect when someone loses their life to suicide is horrendous. And I just, I really, no matter how useless you feel out there, you're not. You're needed.
Yeah. I want to point out just some other resources we have within our own community. We have a pastoral team that you can contact either via email or by phone. Each one of our sites has a pastoral lead. And I think the names are all coming up right now on the feed, and they're on the site as well. So please reach out. We want to be there to help you as well in this time. And we're many, and we can help. The other question I have for you, Lisa, what would you say to someone who's close to someone who is feeling this way? What input would you give them, again, from the other side of it, from reflection?
I think, remind them who they were and that they'll get back to that, so when they say, is this me forever? Am I always going to be like that? I remember thinking, I think, depression warps your memories too. I remember saying to Brent, have I ever been happy? Have I ever really been happy? So, just be confident in the knowledge of the person you love and reassure them. But I would also say, make sure you have a space to get support yourself. And that can't come from the person that's poorly. You can't put pressure on the person that's poorly and depressed and anxious and say, you're really driving me, you're really hard work. I can't, they already feel terrible. And it is hard supporting someone with depression. So get support outside of that whilst they're poorly, and they will get better. You can reassure them of that. And when I was ill, if someone had said to me, Lisa, you're going to be okay, I would have believed them. But interestingly, the GP I had at the time didn't want to say that. I don't know why, maybe because of a litigious society we live in. But I would have believed her if she'd have said, Lisa, I've known you 10 years. You will get better. You'll be back to your normal self. You'll be back to who you were. She didn't do that.
And your experience is you are.
I am. I'm living a better life because I'm not living wrapped up in fearful beliefs and safety behaviors. And
Great. That's great. Particular to our church community, what would you say to our leaders, to our ministry staff, to our small group leaders, our lay leaders in the community? What would you say to them in terms of how they could be helpful, how they could be supportive?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to get some training so they understand what is going on in that person's brain and body and life. But really, I would say don't be scared of helping them. There was, a kind of a reaction in my pastoral care team with the church I was at, that they didn't really know how to reassure me or how to help me. So I think they talked and prayed for me. They talked about me and prayed for me. And then when I came back and appeared back in church, someone said, oh, I knew you were ill. And I was like, oh my gosh, they've been talking about me. That wasn't helpful. It would have been helpful if they'd have come and had a coffee with me and prayed with me and just, but there was a bit of a fear factor of saying the wrong thing. And you can't say the wrong thing if you're being caring, compassionate and kind. And acknowledge them. I know that we can be quite draining, particularly when you're needing reassurance. I remember I know I needed reassurance. But, try between the team, come up with, I'll give them a call on Tuesday. You give them a call on Wednesday, one day a week, one phone call a week or whatever. Just make it so that you acknowledge them, that they do exist and they do matter to your community, to your church, and, and realize that they're not well. And it's a moment in time. It's not forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important to recognize it. And, and I hear you saying multiple people, acknowledging the struggle and not necessarily having the answer, but just being a friend, being, being available or being awkward, being okay to be awkward in what can be a really tough time. And I want to just bring back to what you said about the partner or the family of someone who's struggling, the need that they have as well for some support, whatever that might look like for them. Picking kids up from school, bringing over a meal, just calling to say, how are you doing? This has got to be hard for you, whatever it is, but recognizing, as a community that we can come around a family that's struggling, and there's many things we can do.
Yes. Yeah.
To help them when they need. Yeah. So now we're going to fast forward and we're going to go to, you pioneered Hope and Depression. First class, I believe, was 2013.
Yeah. October 2013. Yeah. 9 delegates.
9 delegates, one church. So now we'll fast forward to 2021. About how many outlets is Hope and Depression operating in now?
So we are in 12 churches, and we have run 53 courses since October 2013. The reason why the church number is so low is they repeat the course. So we are a very small team managing this. So we are training and supporting and providing the course material. We do need money. We do need prayers to allow us to grow and meet this very real need. And the way that you can, if you feel led to support what we're doing, and I will explain a little bit of what we do, go to our website, which I can see is linked at the bottom there. And you can donate. One-off donation or monthly giving would just be a lifeline. The course is free. It's free for people to attend, and it's free for churches to have the materials and run it. And the reason why we made that decision is because churches, their money's going into other resources, food banks or, COVID relief. And we don't want churches to not take the course on if money's getting in the way of that decision. Churches need to be equipped and educated on how to support people in their community that are struggling. And, 60%, I think it is, of doctors' appointments are mental health related. So we're going to come across it in every single church. So we need to be educated on how to help people practically. And our course provides that with our speakers we have a psychiatrist, we have a GP, therapist, mindfulness instructor, a nutritionist, and a fitness instructor, and loads of stories of recovery. They're hope-filled. And
I remember back in 2013, there was a little Word document pamphlet that was put together with some, clip art kind of things in it. And now you have a fully produced workbook that is just full of great information on different kinds of counseling, on the brain, on the kind of things that the speakers talk about, but it's there to go back to and use there's all kinds of references in there.
It's a great resource, and it's a great resource because when people are going through the course, they might not be able to take in everything and read everything. So it's a good reminder of what they've gone over 6 weeks. But it's also a great resource to tap into if they're feeling wobbly 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the line. It's an ongoing, amazing resource. It's 118 pages of A4. And it used to be, 10 A4s folded in half in a stapled A5. So, this is information that I have gleaned from our speakers over the years and just updated. We have an amazing image from the Mayo Clinic in America of a brain scan, which shows a brain that is depressed and a brain that isn't depressed. And you can see areas of the brain that are just shut down in darkness and not functioning, not working well. Proof it's a physical illness, proof it's not something you can snap out of or bring on yourself. Yeah. So that can be really relieving. So I'm super excited about what we do because it's a lifeline. And we've proven that it helps people. 97% of people on the course say that their mood improved. That's huge.
Yeah. And quite a lot of testimonies of people that, have said the course has saved their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're creating is a community of fellow sufferers. And, the uniqueness of our course is we're for supporters. So people who care, like my husband would have been, or someone who works with someone that's depressed and wants to be equipped on how to do that, they can come on the course. But it's also for people with anxiety and depression. So it's not just anxiety and depression sufferers, it's equipping both. And having us in a room together, whether on Zoom or live, creates this normality that you can relate to one another. I thought I was the worst case out there. And I took great comfort when I found friends who could say, I remember feeling like that, Lisa. You'll get past it. We do that for each other. We're called to be in relationship with each other. We're not meant to live isolated lives. And it's a wonderful place to be because it is hope-filled. My brother said to me once, is it quite depressing, this course that you run? I'm like, no, it's not. The relief is tangible.
Yeah. I was part of your team for the first lockdown, Hope and Depression, that we did on Zoom.
Yeah.
And what I thought was great, it was how it translated onto the Zoom platform as well, and the community. And I think the warmest part for me on the course is the people on the course sharing resources with one another and looking out for each other and saying, I'll give you a call. Yeah. And just being there for one another as well is just really just seeing it in action is really quite wonderful.
And I think that raises a point, actually, that not all people are going to be good at supporting people with depression and anxiety. And maybe someone has a firm opinion about medication, unfounded probably, but maybe they're not the ones to go and give comfort to someone that's struggling with depression and anxiety. So you've got to realize that you've got to find your tribe. You've got to find people that become your community that you can lean on. And in this space, they find that, and we're from all walks of life. It doesn't, depression and anxiety could affect anyone of any income, any background, any nationality. And so the relatability is in being human and being, unfortunately, fallible with our mental health, and it normalizes it. That's hugely relieving.
Yeah, absolutely. So the course is beginning on October 5th. It's going to be Tuesday evenings at 7:30 p.m.
Actually, sorry, it's the 4th.
Oh, it's the 4th. Okay.
4th, yes. Yeah.
It's Tuesday though, correct?
That's right. It's Tuesday.
Okay. So it's a 6-week course.
Gosh, I'm so sorry. It's the 5th.
It is the 5th. Okay. Don't play with the dyslexic like that. It's not good. Okay. October 5th. Tuesday, October 5th at 7:30 on Zoom.
Yeah.
You can either sign up on the Kerith Church site, or you can find the link through the Hope and Depression website as well. Mm-hmm. No cost for the course. Donations are appreciated, but not expected.
Everyone will receive the book. Everyone will receive the book. We don't want that to stop. People not buying the book, so we provide the book now.
That's wonderful. And it is on Zoom, so which we all know is great to reach people in other parts of the country as well. And that time of night, other countries also.
Yeah,
has happened.
We've had a few overseas. We have.
Yeah. So please pass the link on if there's anyone in particular that you think might benefit from being part of the course. Please do that. Again, I just want to call attention to our pastoral team led by Katrina Benham in Windsor. Our lead there is Bethany Christian Evans. In West White, it is Paula Masdell. At our Farnborough site, it is Sharon Evans. In Bracknell, it's Carolyn Hanbury. Also, if you're struggling with this and this has brought up things for you, and you're feeling like you need to talk, Samaritans, the number for Samaritans is 116-123. They're there all night. There's also an email address, joe@samaritans.org, and they will respond to you within 24 hours if it's more comfortable for you to communicate that way. And if you're feeling really low, calling 999 for an immediate response is what you should do. Mm-hmm. There's also a great resource, another workbook called the Emotional Resource Guide. You can get that on Amazon. It's written by a woman named Carolyn Spring, who has also some other really wonderful resources for depression, anxiety, panic. And we didn't speak a lot about the families that are affected by suicide, friends and family that are affected by suicide. But there's an organization that's recently come to my attention. It's called suicideandcompany.org, and they provide counseling and resources and a community group. And the link for that is up there. So please don't feel like you need to be alone. As Lisa said, we're not meant to do this life by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your story and being so truthful and honest with us. Our next video cast is going to be on the 17th of October at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about nutrition and mental health and eating disorders. And hope that you would join us on that. quite a lot of new research on that, and would love to share what's going on with that with you. And if you've got any questions, let us know beforehand. We'll make sure that we get to them. And thanks all for being here tonight. Have a lovely evening. And thanks again, Lisa.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.